With all the high-tech fabrics and materials we have today, it's kind of wild to think about one that's been with us for over 5,000 years. I'm talking about silk, of course. For millennia, it's been the very definition of luxury and art. But here's the thing. Today, that ancient legacy is facing some very, very modern problems. So we're going to unravel the whole story of silk, from a tiny, humble silkworm all the way to the high-stakes, high-tech global industry it is today. Just look at that. It's so much more than just a thread, isn't it? Every single one of these shimmering strands is like a tiny time capsule. It connects us all the way back to ancient civilizations, but it also tells a story about a really complex future. It's this beautiful dance between what nature can create and what humans can perfect. One single thread holding thousands of years of tradition and all the pressures of today's market. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. All right, so let's get into it. To really get a grip on the problems the silk industry is facing, you first have to understand just how this stuff is made. It's almost like magic. And it all begins with one very, very hungry little creature. The fancy term for it is sericulture. And really all that means is the farming of silkworms to make silk. But this isn't your average farming. We are talking about a process that humans have been fine-tuning for literally thousands of years. The star of the whole show is this little guy, the silkworm, or Bombyx mori. And get this, it's been so domesticated over the centuries that it literally can't survive in the wild anymore. It depends completely on humans to live. And its entire purpose? To eat mulberry leaves and spin them into this incredible, luxurious fabric. Okay, so the journey from a tiny worm to a beautiful piece of fabric is just wild. First up, you've got the rearing. And basically all these little silkworms do is eat and eat and eat. I mean, they consume up to 25,000 times their own body weight in mulberry leaves. Can you even imagine? After they're full, they start spinning. The worm pushes out this liquid silk from its body that hardens when it hits the air, and it spins itself into this cozy little cocoon. Now here's where it gets really tricky. The reeling. The cocoons are put in hot water to loosen them up, and then someone has to find the very end of that single continuous thread, which by the way can be a whole kilometer long, and carefully unwind it. It's insane. Finally, thousands of those threads are twisted together to make yarn, and that's what gets woven into the final fabric. It's this amazing mix of biology and pure human craftsmanship. Okay, so we've seen how one thread is made. Now let's zoom way out and look at the entire global industry. And honestly, when you talk about silk on a global scale, you're pretty much talking about one country, one absolute powerhouse that runs the whole show. So how much silk are we talking about? Well, China pumps out over 60,000 tons of raw silk a year. To put that in perspective for you, that is somewhere between 80 and 90% of the entire world's supply. It's a mind-boggling industrial machine that's been built on top of this ancient, delicate craft. But, and this is a big but, even this giant is starting to face some serious problems. And this is where we start to see the cracks. Check out this chart. If you just look at one specific part of the market, silk quilts, which are a huge deal in China, the market size dropped by over 4 billion RMB. And that was just in 2 years. We're talking a drop of almost 14% year over year. For a luxury item, that is not just a small slump, that's a massive red flag coming straight from the biggest player in the game. So what does the market actually look like over there? Well, it's really split into tiers, kind of like a pyramid. At the very top, you have these two giants, Mercury Home Textiles and Fuana. They're huge, publicly traded companies with big research departments and thousands of stores. Together, they own about 45% of the market. Then you have the second tier, strong companies, but mostly just well-known in their own regions. And then you have the bottom tier. This is where you find tons and tons of small businesses. And frankly, they are really struggling. They're all making pretty much the same stuff, they don't have good ways to sell it, and they just can't compete with the big guys. One report even said they're in dire straits. It's a tough place to be. So here's the bottom line. This ancient industry, this massive global machine, it's really in trouble. It's facing this perfect storm of money problems and maybe even worse, trust issues. It feels like the whole thing is starting to unravel. So let's dig into exactly what's going wrong. You'd think with its luxurious reputation, silk would be everywhere, right? Well, take a look at this. It's actually kind of shocking. In the enormous bedding market in China, silk quilts make up less than 5% of all sales. It gets absolutely crushed by cotton and synthetic fibers. I mean, they're at 45% and 35% respectively. So for all its fame and history, silk is still a tiny, tiny niche player. And this is why. Let's break down the main pain points. First off, it's just plain expensive. We're talking 3 to 5 times the price of cotton. That's a huge hurdle for most people. At the exact same time, the people making the silk are getting squeezed like crazy. The cost of their raw materials shot up over 45% in just a couple of years. So what happens? Well, when you're under that much pressure, especially if you're a smaller company, you might be tempted to cut corners, maybe use cheaper, lower quality stuff. And that leads directly to the biggest problem of all. People are losing trust in the product. And if you want proof, look no further than this. This single statistic really tells the whole story. Complaints about quality jumped 22% in just 1 year. But here's the real kicker. Almost 2/3 of those complaints, 63%, were about companies basically pulling a bait and switch, selling stuff that wasn't real high-quality silk. When that happens, it doesn't just hurt one bad company, it poisons the well for everyone. But okay, it is not all doom and gloom. This isn't just a story about an industry falling apart. Because people are fighting back. They're innovating. And they're doing it by looking back to ancient traditions and forward to brand new technology. So let's see how they're trying to weave a new future for silk. You know, sometimes to move forward, you have to look back. And this is a perfect example. It's called Shangyunsha silk. It's this ancient technique where the fabric is dyed with plant juice and then covered in special iron-rich river mud. It sounds a little weird, I know, but the whole process is 100% natural. No chemical waste at all. And the result is this incredibly tough, beautiful fabric. It's an amazing reminder that being eco-friendly isn't some new idea for silk. It's been part of its history for centuries. So really, the industry is at a fork in the road. You've got 2 paths to choose from. On one side, you have the standard way of doing things, all about getting the most silk possible, which often means using a ton of energy and water and sometimes creating pollution. But then there's this other path, a more sustainable one. A great example is what the luxury brand Hermes is doing down in Brazil. Their whole system is designed to work with nature, not against it. They use circular, resource-efficient methods. They actually help biodiversity, and this is huge. They don't destroy any natural habitats to do it. And this image here, it just lays it all out so perfectly. This is that Hermes model in Brazil, and you can see how they have thought about every single step. They built in these positive interventions all along the way. We're talking about smart farming that protects the soil, systems that recycle and save water. They're even replanting forests to get wood for heating in a sustainable way. It's a complete holistic system where the goal from the very beginning is to have as little impact on the environment as possible. So what does the future look like? Well, it looks like a really cool blend of old and new. You've got amazing product innovation. They're developing silks that can do things like regulate your temperature or even fight off microbes. Then there are these intelligent upgrades. Imagine your silk bedding connecting to your smart home to help you sleep better. Seriously. And of course, the business side is evolving too. Companies are creating these cool, immersive stores you can visit, but also backing it up with great online content. The smartest ones are rebuilding their brands by focusing on that deep cultural history, getting scientific proof for their claims, and, above all, shouting about their eco-friendly, sustainable methods. That's how you win back trust. Okay, so we've been on quite a journey, right? From a single silkworm to a global marketplace, from its peak of luxury to the pressures of the modern world. So after all of that, what's the big takeaway? What's the real story of silk? I think it's this. Silk has never, ever been just a product you buy and sell. It is so much more than a commodity. It's a carrier of culture. And you see this in places like the China National Silk Museum. They're not just hanging up pretty fabrics. No, they are actively researching and saving these ancient pieces, some from the original Silk Road. They're preserving a physical history that literally connected the world. And this quote, this just says it all perfectly, doesn't it? Real luxury is born from patience, respect, and the timeless art of transformation. In a world and in an industry that's all about going faster and cheaper, this is such a powerful reminder. It tells us that real, true value comes from taking your time, from respecting the process, from that delicate dance between nature, technology, and patient human skill. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. In our age of fast fashion, of clothes made from plastic that we wear a few times and then throw away, what is the true value of a material like silk? something that carries millennia of human history and that relies entirely on the life of one little insect to even exist. What is that really worth to you?